Please remember some of the moves demonstrated are by advanced skaters. Before attempting any advanced moves, please seek professional advice from an instructor.
Hello and welcome to Inline Plus. Recently, our Series 1 presenter Sarah Strong-Law, aka Barrelhouse Bessy, passed away. Tonight we present a special tribute to her from husband Mr. W Boone-Law, and Smarty Pants Nadia Kean, a good friend of the couple from the USA. They begin by talking about the first time Sarah watched roller derby in Texas.
You know, I can remember when Sarah and I first immigrated to Australia. One of the last memorable conversations we had in Texas, I remember Smarty when she grabbed you at the Cabello Cup and said, "I want to learn to roller skate. I'm going to start roller derby in Australia." And then we were gone. What did you think when she said that to you? Like at that time, did you think she would actually do anything with it?
Well, I thought it was ironic because I'd been, or not ironic like in the true sense, but like in the Alanis Morissette sense. I had been asking her to come see roller derby, but Sarah and you were super busy, and so she never had the time to see roller derby in Austin, and so she never had the time to see roller derby in Austin until that game right before you all moved. And so
Yeah.
I remember her just like, her eyes were like big as saucers, and she was like so excited and so happy, and you could tell she had like found her people, and she was
Yeah.
like, "I want to do this," and I was like, "I know, but you're moving." And then she was like, "I'm moving," and we're like, "Well, you better start roller derby in Australia." And you know, like I think that I had no idea what it would become, you know, and like how big that would impact like her life and my life and so many people's life. So yeah, it was just such a funny moment because it was like, oh my gosh, you could just see like her wishing that she'd gone to see derby way before that and tried out for roller derby and had been playing it. But also, I think it would have probably been hard for her to want to leave Austin if she had been really part of the derby culture and community, because back then it was just like so special and so new, nobody wanted to leave. So it's probably best.
You know, we hit Adelaide at such a special time.
Yeah. What about you, Boone?
You know, because Adelaide back in that mid 2000s was kind of going through I don't know how to describe it. It was just almost a keep Austin weird or keep Adelaide daggy kind of attitude, and you know, young people, and we were young. You know, we were all in our mid 20s to early 30s. We were just being creative, and derby fit right in with that kind of rebel spirit. And I feel lucky that I got to be a fly on the wall at that Cabello Cup in 2005, I think it was. And I can remember seeing that same passion in Sarah as she grabbed you. I think didn't y'all have like a school bus that was your dressing room? I think you were skating off the school bus, as I recall.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
And I can also remember you saying, I can also remember you saying, "I know, Sarah, I believe you." You did. You totally believed her then. You saw that passion. And lo and behold, a year later, you're in our home in Adelaide.
I know. Yeah, it was quite wild to also have somebody say like, "I'm going to do this thing," and it was quite like a big thing. I think it's a big thing to start a derby league and then to actually do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
it started happening so quick. You know, and Inline Plus came into that picture early on. And like on that first trip, I just remember y'all skating up and down Glenelg with John Powell, just doing ad hoc filming. What do you remember of that, of doing that?
Yeah. Well, I remember like thinking that I remember just thinking it was like really unique opportunity and trying to think of like what I could show people of what like roller skating looked like, that the type of roller
Mm,
skating that we did in roller derby. And also TXRD was always about making things like super big. And so trying to sort out how to like just wanting to make sure it was like capturing people's attention because
yeah.
that was going to play a bigger role in making sure that people understood that what roller derby was or like what it had the potential to do for the community. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a real attitude back then too between I guess rollerblades or inline skaters and this growing derby community. I think that was met with a lot of skepticism. Did you encounter that as well when you were recording with people?
Oh, you know what? I don't remember that, honestly. I think that sometimes in sports, like when you have similar sports come together, there's always maybe some skepticism,
Yeah,
you know? Like I think there's still a lot of skepticism about roller derby. Like people don't understand it or they don't even acknowledge it as a real sport sometimes. And then like within inline skating or I'm sure that they deal with the same thing. So I don't really remember that because it seemed like we were all just like so eager and so like excited and wanting to just
yeah,
like share this culture, which was like shoes with wheels on them, that it
yeah.
seemed, no one was like taking over anyone's space. So it seemed fine. Do you remember anything about that?
Look, I remember, I think the skepticism was more towards, are these folks going to learn how to actually roller skate? Because rollerblading had become so dominant since the 1990s. Suddenly see people
Hmm.
in squat skates going up and down the foreshore in Glenelg, I think shocked people initially.
Yeah,
And people thought, how
yeah,
are these folks
absolutely.
going to play the sport? They can't even skate yet. So that's where I think the skepticism was. But people picked it up very quickly. And honestly, Sarah had not skated much before moving to Australia. Were you surprised with how
Yeah.
quickly she picked it up?
Um, I think once I knew Sarah better, no, you know, like
Yeah,
once I got to know who Sarah was and like that she'd also been an athlete for most of her life, like
yeah,
then it wasn't surprising. But she did really pick up roller skating really fast, and she was good at it. Um, I think that was probably also one of the things that made it so that people wanted to join in with what she was doing because she made it look so effortless. Like
yeah,
when sports look hard to do or they look overly complicated, then sometimes people don't want to start them. And roller derby is actually like super complicated. Like the rule set's just very long.
yes.
It's a very detailed sport. So it's good that we made it look like really approachable.
After the break, we talk about how Sarah helped develop the Adelaide roller derby community.
And it was really awesome to see the community of roller derby that built up in Adelaide. It just like grew so quickly. And it was because of all of the hard work that was being done behind the scenes and like in front of the scenes. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to watch those old Inline Plus episodes, and you can literally see how the community is growing. Look, I watching I watched all of the Inline Plus episodes a week or two ago, and it's amazing seeing how the community is growing literally
Yeah.
episode to episode. So many people that came into your life, Smarty, into my life. You see the growth of that community on screen, and Sarah just leading it with this. She had such incredible confidence, and when she decided she was going to do something, she could just put herself out there and do it so confidently. And I think that was what really attracted so
Hmm.
many people to Derby in Adelaide in those early
Yeah, I mean,
days. Would you agree?
it's interesting because I would come and I'd be like a little transplant for a while, and then I would go, and then I'd come and I'd be a transplant, and I'd go. So I would come, and it would be maybe like 12 skaters or 13 skaters the first time, and then I came back, and it was like triple that number, and so forth. And so it was obvious. Yeah, it was obvious that it was something
Yeah.
really special. It was obvious that she was a leader that people respected. And I do agree with you. I think that Sarah had a way of just like believing in a concept and making it happen. And she also had a way in believing in other people's concepts and ideas and encouraging them, because she could just see it as clear as day, like somebody having an idea, and she could see it play out, and she could, yeah, like that's the thing, go do it, you know? And I think that her confidence and also just like her
Yeah.
attitude just was infectious, and people just really wanted to follow that, for sure.
She was the type of person that she would often say, is this fair and equitable to all? And I think that a lot of times when someone is in a position like that, when the organization is starting to grow, you need that sort of leadership, because mistakes will be made, and if you go off into a direction where it just becomes about a little clique of people, that's not doing the sport any good. She really wanted it to be accessible to everyone, and everyone have input, and everyone find their own voice within it. That's what I love about those early days of Derby, how homegrown everything was, from the uniforms and the names, and really even skating styles. They're so different today than 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also really cool because Australian roller derby is really one of the strongholds of the sport, and it's really cool to see that it started, just as like a small movement with people quite isolated from derby and the rest of the world, and like isolated from equipment, and only having like the internet to tell you like what was going on and what was being played. And then players, if they wanted to like play derby against other teams, like it was going to be expensive because you're going to have to travel, or they were going to have to come to you. So it is pretty remarkable. Yeah. And I think that, Sarah, she showed a lot of confidence, but we had a lot of conversations on the back end where she'd bring a discussion, like, oh, hey, this is happening in my league and I'm not really sure. I want to make sure we're doing this right, but it, maybe it doesn't seem right. What's your take on this? So she definitely wasn't one of those leaders that just kind of led blindly, just like believing that she knew all. But I think if you didn't know that about her, that on the back end, she was questioning a lot of choices and decisions and calls. And when someone would tell her like they didn't agree with her, she would like quietly contemplate and just question herself and just like keep herself in check. So I don't know how many people saw that side of Sarah, but definitely, you wouldn't see that on the Inline Plus, videos, because those were more just like fun little tidbits of skating and us just showing like whatever random thing we came up with that day. But knowing like, the backside of the story for like how the Adelaides came to be and Adelaide roller derby came to be. It was good. It was cool because like, I'm sure that if y'all had never moved to Adelaide, or on the flip side, if y'all had never started a roller derby league in Adelaide, like it would have happened eventually, but it wouldn't have necessarily happened with that twist of knowing what roller derby in Austin looked like, and that was unique. The Austin roller derby scene was very, very unique. So that was cool to see it, move to Adelaide, South Australia.
Well, Smarty, I think you brought up a lot of good points that just kind of interweave there. That one of those, you and I, being Texans originally, I know that we're transplanted in places we were born, and people have a lot of ideas of what Texans are. But for me, probably one of the greatest values of being Texan that I feel like I've always shared with Australians is self-reliance. And Sarah certainly had that. And when we are so isolated from the rest of the world here, the way that roller derby has grown here, and people have at times had to innovate. I mean, you think about our first bouts here in Adelaide. I think we were wearing weren't we wearing shower caps, for goodness sakes?
Yeah, for your start. Yeah.
I just think about that self-reliance, and Sarah brought that self-reliance and can-do attitude to Inline Plus, hosting it. And y'all stood out there on the corner, improvising, with John filming, and they're beautiful. It captures such a really special cultural era in Derby here in Adelaide. Yeah, it's lovely. I still think about our house in Glenelg and the little sunroom that you stayed in. You pretty much became our family.
Yeah, your fourth house guest.
You came over so much, everybody wanted to skate with you.
Was that called? Yeah.
No, I loved it. That's why you're my roller derby,
sister.
My American sister.
Y'all are so sweet. I just come for like 3 to 6 weeks at a time and like eat all your food and drink your little creatures beer and just go to derby practice. I was like basically like a high school kid or something. Your exchange student. But yeah, that was a very, very, very fun time. It was super fortunate also just being like this, I don't know, this 20-something-year-old that suddenly was being flown to Australia. Like that was really, really lucky opportunity, like so fortunate. And just being able to be there for early roller derby in Australia, it was remarkable, getting to know like the original Adelaide roller derby, and then in turn like going to Canberra and getting to know the Canberra roller derby. And I think it was really cool.
Yes.
It was awesome. It was cool to watch a sport grow. And it's still growing, and it's with COVID, it's taken like a pause around the world. And so it's at another growth stage, which I think is good. But yeah, definitely.
After the break, we talk about how Inline Plus helped the roller derby community.
Well, it's amazing watching the videos and seeing so many of our friends in that community. I'm still in contact with, with Machine, and Violent Crumble was there. I remember seeing Roller Junkie in some of the videos. Just so many skaters. Vaderella on there. And there must just be hours and hours of Inline Plus footage. Michael, I want to ask you, where is that footage? And has any of it been archived that's never been shown?
Most of the footage from that era is probably with John Powell at the moment, so he's probably got the tapes. But I've only got the parts of it that were broadcast, so that's the only stuff I've got access to at the moment.
I think it's so wonderful that the Inline Plus footage is archived somewhere, because as the sport evolves, that those early days of derby footage here are going to become more and more valuable for the history of the sport. You see the roller derby revival that happened in 2005, and you see that almost everywhere that roller derby is born, again, you get the same story about, roller derby was around in the 1940s and the 50s and 60s, and then it died out. And then they show the same stock footage. And it's really so little of that. The fact that all of this stuff has been captured is really important. And a lot of it got used in Daniel Hayward's film, This is Roller Derby. So that's really good that some of it's got out there. But there just must be hours and hours of it stockpiled in John Powell's closet.
Yeah, it's funny. When I first started derby in Austin, we had a film crew there because there was a documentary that was being made about the startup of the two leagues. And nobody really told us why they were there filming. So I just thought it was normal for there to always be camera crews at your roller derby practice, which of course was not the case. But I mean, it is nice. Like, to be honest, like, I haven't gone back to watch the Inline Plus videos yet because, like, one, I cringe when I see myself on video, so it just is super embarrassing. And then two, um, I just haven't, I just haven't been able to watch them yet. And so I think when I do, it'll be, it'll be enlightening, and it's definitely going to bring back memories that, like, I, you know, I haven't had for a long time. Yeah, I would say, yeah, like, I think that TV shows like Inline Plus, um, even if they're for like a small community, even if they're just for like the city that you're in or whatnot, they give a really unique opportunity for small scale athletes to get word out about their sport. And yeah, roller derby is still a pretty small sport, even though it's grown tremendously over the last 2 decades, but it's still pretty small. People still don't know about it. And so it gives a voice to skaters that don't really have a big voice in media. And it lets people know that they exist and that they're playing their sport, and, how to find the sport. So I think it was also just a good way to help to support athletes in roller derby.
Look, I couldn't agree more with what Smarty just said about the importance of community television shows like Inline Plus. I think so often the popular media wants to sell us what feels good rather than what's real or what's true. And the fact that Inline Plus is such an organic program that caught the real culture and the real people as they are is a really valuable thing. And, even on a more personal level, I love all those people, and, my beautiful wife's on there. And I'm just so glad that archive exists for the future, not just for the sport and to remember, but, also for our daughter. It's a really beautiful, cherished time in my life personally.
Thank you to Mr. W and Smarty Pants for helping us to remember Barrelhouse Bessy tonight. We'll be back for one more episode next week, so good night for now.
Next week on Inline Plus, we take a brief look back at this Series 3 and say our final goodbyes. So please join us again. Please remember, some of the moves demonstrated are by advanced skaters. Before attempting any advanced moves, please seek professional advice from an instructor.